So let's start with Mangalachan. Om Ajnantimirandasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam. Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yutapad Kamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavanscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Lalita Shri Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Dev Jaganvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Deenabandhu Jagatpati Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Anchakalvari Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripasindhubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Cheva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiriye Nashtaprayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavate Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki Krishnaya Vasudevaya Devaki Nandanaya cha Nanda Gopa Kumaraya Govindaya Namo Namah. Hare Krishna. So today we'll be covering verse 18 from chapter 29, which is explanation of devotional service by Lord Kapila. It's in 3rd canto. So, Adhyatmikanushravanam Nama Sankirtana me Arjavenarya Sangena Nirhankriyaya Tatha Adhyatmikanushravanam Nama Sankirtana me Arjavenarya Sangena निर्अहं क्रियया तथा आध्यात्मिकानुश्रवणान् नाम संकीर्तनाच्च मे आर्जवेनार्यसंगेन निर्अहं क्रियया तथा. Vaishnavas, please. नाम संकीर्तनाच्च मे आर्जवेनार्यसंगेन निरहं क्रियया तथा. संकीर्तनाच्च मे आर्जवेनार्यसंगेन क्रियया तथा. आध्यात्मिका, spiritual matters. Anushravanat, from hearing. Nama Sankirtanat, from chanting the holy name. Cha, and may, my. Arjavena, with straightforward behavior. Arya Sangena, with association of saintly persons. Nirahankriyaya, without false ego. Tatha, thus. Translation by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki. Please repeat. A devotee should always try to hear about spiritual matters and should always utilize his time in chanting the holy name of the Lord. His behavior should always be straightforward and simple. And although he is not envious, but friendly to everyone, he should avoid the company of persons who are not spiritually advanced. Hare Krishna. So today's purport is quite long, so I won't read it word by word. I'll first quickly do the recap of what we have seen in last couple of verses, and then go through the key points of today's verse, which Srila Prabhupada mentions. So we know this chapter is about the devotional service, which Kapila Dev is explaining to his mother. He gives the example of how in devotional service a devotee's mind automatically flows towards Krishna. And analogy given is like the water of Ganga, so Ganges river, naturally flows towards the ocean, so with no interruptions. So a pure devotee doesn't even want or accept liberation. Rather, they're not interested in liberation. They just want to serve and please Krishna. And by doing so, they can overcome the influence of the three modes of material nature. Lord Kapila also describes devotees should do their prescribed duties, but also regularly do devotional service. Respect the acharyas, control their senses. So yesterday, for example, Prabhuji was mentioning from the purport, Bodhayanta Parasparam, discussing among themselves. So this is part of this verse of Bhagavad Gita. It's part of Chaturshloki. So, Machchita, Gata Prana, Bodhayanta, Parasparam, Kathayantascha Mam Nitya, Tushyanti cha, Ramanti cha. So, that brings us to today's verse, where Kapila Muni explains how we should chant the holy name and hear about spiritual things. So the key points which I've noted here from Srila Prabhupada's purport. 1, yes, we should hear about spiritual knowledge, but that too from proper sources. So that's how we advance in our spiritual journey and our understanding. So it was interesting to see how he mentions we shouldn't have blind faith. We shouldn't just follow rules and regulation without purpose. So we should follow them so that we can advance in spiritual life. Prabhupada also talks about certain qualities, which we'll talk a bit more, like simplicity, humility, pridelessness. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu taught us we should be more humble than the grass, on the street. We should be more tolerant than a tree. So we shouldn't have pride or be puffed up, Then we can progress in our spiritual life. So the translation, from the translation of today's words, it's quite very clear in terms of, what we should do and what we shouldn't do. So we should chant, we should hear about the spiritual matters, So use our time wisely in chanting the holy name of the Lord. One's behavior, it's mentioned, should always be straightforward and simple. We shouldn't be envious of others, rather should be friendly to everyone. So having said that, it's mentioned we should try to avoid the company of those who are not spiritually advanced. So it's in one sense clear like what we should do and what we shouldn't do. But then when it comes to application, most of the times we find ourselves or we get confused or mixed up. Sometimes we think am I being too fanatic? So should I talk to this person or not talk to this person, or if it's okay? Sometimes we try to even convince ourselves, remind ourselves, it's mentioned in the verse, so am I doing the right thing? So let's talk about the virtues which Srila Prabhupada mentions in this purport. And he gives the reference of chapter 13 of Bhagavad Gita, so 13.8 to 12, where Krishna explains or talks about these virtues. So he says these virtues or this knowledge, Vidya, in terms of virtues, rather than just a piece of information. So in 13.12 he says, Etaj jnanam iti proktam ajnanam yad ato anyata. So whatever he describes is knowledge. Apart from that, everything is ignorance. So of course, when we say information or technical knowledge, that's important. But that technical knowledge in itself is not important. Alone, it's not important. Why? So why it's not important? We always say information or knowledge is power. Because it doesn't help one to build the character, a person's character. For example, someone may be very good at his job, maybe engineer. So building, nice designed buildings or good houses, bridges, But does it really reflect on the person's character? Whether that person is a good person or not so much good person, So education doesn't focus on character development. It could be, for example, we got some issues with our health and someone say, that surgeon, he's expert, he's the best in the whole world. Go to him. But if he doesn't have a good character, would I go to that person for my surgery? Probably not. Because, that person may take my appendix or gallbladder, if I have those issues. But if he also takes one of my kidneys, then would I go to that person? No. So character is important. He may be the best in knowledge, but character is important. That's basically the point I'm trying to make here. But what we find in today's education is the system doesn't really focus on character building. The focus is on earning money. If you earn good money, what will happen? You'll get or build a good house. You can have a big, very expensive, luxurious car, big bank balance, and then you'll get a good wife in terms of like external beauty. So that's generally at the moment or nowadays is the focus of good education, they say, to earn a living. But we need to understand the purpose of education is not just earn a living, but actually to develop character as well. So when Krishna talks about knowledge or items of knowledge or these virtues, these qualities, the first one mentioned is humility or amanitvam, followed by pridelessness, which is adambitvam. And these qualities, Srila Prabhupada mentioned in today's verse, the purport of today's verse. So we'll touch on some of those qualities. We won't go into all of them. So the first one, as we say, humility. And second is pridelessness. So one may wonder, aren't they the same thing, like if you're not proud, like you are humble, like in one sense? But there is a difference, being humble or humility or pridelessness. So amanitvam, humility, not being proud. When? Even if you have a reason to be proud. So for example, I was speaking to a young devotee girl. She did her HSC and she got like 98 at her, which is really good. So as we generally say to encourage or to appreciate, oh, your parents must be very happy, you must be very proud of yourself. And she was like, not sure about it. Like, yes, my parents are happy, I'm happy. But this is what my mom asked me to do, like, just study. And she gave the credit to her mom and Krishna. So Krishna basically tells me to do things via my mom. And I was like, I wish I could be that humble, not taking any credit of the hard work, she did, rather passing on that credit to Krishna and her mom. So that's humility. So the result is we are not then anxious about the honor, the satisfaction we get if someone honors us. So that's by like definition. But does it mean as a devotee we shouldn't get honored or we shouldn't honor each other or, at all? No. So when we practice devotion service, we do get honor, isn't it? So I was listening to a lecture by His Grace Chaitanya Charan Prabhuji, and he was saying, yes, we do get honor. Sometimes he was saying people come and pay obeisance. So he accepts that respect in terms of he accepts but not expects. So that's basically the difference. So accepting is different rather than expecting. So accept means yes, it's part of Vaishnava etiquette, Vaishnava culture, but we don't expect it. So don't expect it means we don't demand that respect from others. Oh, you must do it. So that's how a devotee is not anxious. It's not concerned, or whether I will be properly treated or being respected, if I go there or if I, in that sense. Or talk to that person, if they go for someone's house. So they are not concerned whether they would be serving me a big feast in my honor. Rather, focus is on discussing about Krishna, bodhiyantam parasparam. So that's humility. Then comes the pridelessness, which also means not being proud, right? Pridelessness. But it's not being proud when you don't have a reason to be proud. So what does it mean by that? Like, you're not proud when you don't have a reason to be proud. It may seem like a bit confusing. So in general, people, they want to look big, big in terms of, or in others' eyes. in world's eyes. But when they try to look big, they end up looking small. So they talk a lot about themselves. I had this, I have that, I had this, I did this, I was this. So this is like trying to look big in others' eyes, in world's eyes. But then talking too much about them, I. So they become miserable in terms of they become dependent on others' praise, others' recognition, the glorification which others would do. So this is how they end up looking small, because they don't have then any self-security. So what it means, it's like sometimes people create a facade to look bigger than they actually are. If someone says, I'm a billionaire, and if the person is billionaire, then it's pride. But if person is not a billionaire and thinks like, I'm a billionaire, it's like damba, hypocrite, being hypocrite in one sense. So practically, we shouldn't brag about what we have. So that's humility. And we should, and then what to speak of bragging when we don't have. So Kena Upanishad, it says, a person who thinks he knows doesn't know. And a person who thinks he doesn't know, knows. I'll just repeat. A person who thinks he knows, doesn't know. And a person who thinks he doesn't know, knows. So what it means, a person doesn't claim to know everything. And this quality we see in devotees. A devotee, they don't say, oh, I know so much about Krishna. A devotee never claims like, I know Krishna entirely, completely, fully. They never claim. Even Arjuna, who was a great devotee and a friend of Krishna, he didn't say, Krishna, I know everything about you. Rather, what he said in 10th chapter, he said, Soyam evatmanatmana vetha tvam purushottama bhuta bhavana bhutesha deva deva jagatpate. So this is 10.15, which comes after Chaturshloki. So bhuta bhavana bhutesha deva deva jagatpate. So Krishna, only you know yourself fully. Nobody else knows you. Krishna also says, when I speak about my vibhutis, my opulences, I only mention the principal ones. So pradhanayata kurushreshta. So I only talk about the main ones. Why? Because my vibhutis are unlimited. So even for spiritual knowledge we shouldn't be proud. What to speak of material knowledge? So that's humility and pridelessness. Then another quality or virtue being mentioned is ahimsa, which is non-violence. In today's verse, in the purport, Srila Prabhupada, he mentions about non-violence. So on the surface, with non-violence, when someone says, I'm vegetarian, I don't eat meat, so killing animals, or, oh, no domestic violence. This is violence because, so no, non-violence. No killing, not harming anyone's body, not beating others. Oh, I don't, which we can classify like as domestic violence, like no beating children or wife, or nowadays we sometimes hear the other way around as well, but anyways. So, Srila Prabhupada, he says, non-violence means not putting others in distress. So yes, at one level, not attacking others, killing others, But real non-violence, Prabhupada says, is to do our best to distribute this real knowledge to the people. Why? So that they can leave this material entanglement. So that's non-violence. So why it's or how it is this non-violence? Because people are trapped in ignorance in material life, and they always suffer material pains. So Srila Prabhupada, he gives elevated explanation of non-violence by saying like one should try his best to distribute this real knowledge to others. So not just attacking others or physically harming others. Why so? Because soul, it evolves through various species, and now we got the human form, which like soul has come to this human form, so it can get liberation. It got the opportunity to become liberated. So not letting soul take this opportunity is also violence. So for example, if a patient is in hospital, patient can be cured in the hospital, and then once the patient gets cured, he can leave the hospital. But if the doctor doesn't give proper medicine, so doctor is not doing anything wrong, like as we said, stealing kidneys or any other organ. So in that sense, not doing wrong, but not treating is also negligence, right? So not doing what they are meant to do, so that is wrong. So doctor knows which medicine to give, which can cure the person. So not giving that medicine is also a crime. So similarly, when we know what can benefit people, still not distributing that, not sharing that, that is violence. So not helping others in their spiritual recovery or healing. Because as we know, the soul undergoes through various species to get a human body, which gives an opportunity to get liberation. So not helping others taking bhakti is violence against the soul. So one may argue, okay, fine, if people are diseased, shouldn't they come to the doctor, come to the hospital, rather than we go to them? So Srila Prabhupada says, in Kali Yuga, people don't even know they are diseased. So it's like an emergency situation where ambulance goes to the person, their home or wherever the patient is. So ambulance goes, An example sometimes we hear is of Jagannath Rath Yatra. So Jagannath comes out of the temple. He's so merciful. Yeah. So that's why, like, when we say, so in an emergency situation, it's the other way around. Another quality being, or virtue being mentioned is tolerance. In general, when we hear tolerance or be tolerant or you should be tolerant, so if someone says something, in India it's commonly said, don't you know what Gandhiji said? If someone slaps you on one side, present the other side. That's tolerant, And then sometimes, or most of them, are you out of your mind? Why would I do that? So what does exactly tolerance means? So tolerance, again, I've heard this in His Grace Chaitanya Charan Prabhuji's class of one of the lectures. He said tolerance means we should understand that small things in life, they shouldn't distract me from my bigger goals. That is tolerance. So if someone insults me or something wrong goes in my life, there are actually many things, and on an everyday basis, we can say things go wrong. They don't go the way we plan. But those things or those people or those behaviors shouldn't distract us from our ultimate purpose. So it's not like, are you coward? Are you impotent? It's not about that. It's about persistence. So we don't let those things distract us. Another one is simplicity. Arjavam, or the truthfulness. So a devotee is not unnecessarily like diplomatic or unnecessary politics. So these virtues we see in Sri Ishopanishad as well, where in that section, mantra 9 to 11, Vidya and Avidya section. So two things were talked with Vidya, and these items of knowledge being connected, these virtues being connected, like once we are discussing humility, pridelessness, non-violence. So Vidya helps us develop these virtues. And someone may say or ask, okay, they are 13th chapter, but that's Jnana section, Jnana sadhana. So as a devotee, what does it mean? Do I need to practice? Prabhupada explains, these qualities help us in our devotion. So he explains, how as devotees, we can understand and develop these qualities. So when we speak like, oh, I've got some disease, it could be stomach ache, headache, So I can perceive that symptom. Okay, I'm feeling pain, in my tummy, in my head. Yeah. I can go to a doctor, and there are so many things, some CT scan, MRI, ultrasound, X-rays, So then they can point out, okay, it's because of, let's take the same example, appendix, So it has grown too big, or it's infected, or some infection, So there are certain things we can perceive, but certain things can't be perceived immediately. Rather, the doctor used his technical knowledge, instruments to understand that. So we know the problem, and after that, okay, I know it, then there is a solution. So a surgeon may say, okay, you need to get the appendix out. So another example we can say is, for example, iceberg. So when we see an iceberg, we see the tip of it. But underneath the water, it's like huge or giant mountain of ice. Right? So similarly with disease, yes, we can perceive, or there might be some tangible symptom, but then there are, or maybe like some serious problems. And then comes the solution. Okay, if it's cancer, for example, then chemotherapy, some radiotherapy, so different things. So there is a cure, the solution. Because sometimes when we say, with the iceberg example, we see only the top part of it. We don't really get to see the part which is under the water. Or with our appendix, we can't really see that. We can perceive only the symptom, like the stomach ache. Right? So how it's relevant, In the same way we understand, there is visible or perceivable symptom or the problems like Janma Mrityu, Jara Vyadhi, old age, death, disease, birth. Yeah. So most of the people, they do consider old age, disease, death quite painful problems. Sometimes they don't consider birth as a problem or being painful or a misery. But as a devotee, we do understand it is painful consciousness being trapped in mother's womb. So as a devotee, we do understand that. So we understand these are the miseries of material existence. And perceiving them is like perceiving the tip of the iceberg or, the stomach ache. But the bigger problem, which is under the water or which we can't really see, is the misdirection of the consciousness. So that's the deeper or the bigger problem, is our consciousness. And why we say misdirection? Because it attracts towards matter rather than towards spirit. So that's the visible or at the problem with the surface. The deeper problem we know with the consciousness. And what's the solution? So the same example, when we go to doctor saying whatever problem we got, he may say your blood cells, red blood cell count is low. Then, all the things the doctor tell us. So just by knowing, is it enough? No. It is important, but it's not enough, So we need to know what practically we can do, right? So simply by knowing, okay, humility, pridelessness, simplicity, truthfulness, they are like all the problems which doctor told us, you got this problem, that problem, red blood cells is low, high blood pressure or blood pressure too low. Yes, so we know we need to work on those, right? So in chapter 16, for example, of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna lists all the godly qualities, austerity, simplicity, non-violence. And in the same chapter, he mentions or gives the demoniac qualities like uncleanliness, untruthfulness, false pride. That's a good thing, right? So having all the qualities listed in Bhagavad Gita, so what's the problem, So when we look at ourselves, we see all the godly qualities. Yeah, I've got almost all of them. Or most of them, maybe not fully manifested, but yeah, I think I do. And when we read about those demonic qualities, untruthful or unclean, pride, yeah, I see that. All these qualities. Oh, no, not in me, in others, So, when I overeat, it's like I was so hungry. I was fasting, since morning. If someone else overeats, it's like, so greedy, so greedy. If I oversleep, I was so tired, like so tired. Someone else oversleep, so lazy, So lazy. Not good, not good. So anyways, coming to the example of a patient. So if we take, to get rid of the disease, we need to take the treatment. Similarly, to get ourselves free from the deeper problems, we need to practice bhakti, follow the path of devotion. So, which means like going beyond janma mrityu jara vyadhi. Srila Prabhupada, gives us a very balanced perspective. On one side, yes, we need to practice bhakti, so we will develop these good qualities. But then he also says, by practicing bhakti, if we are like practicing bhakti, we should have these qualities, right? So what does it mean? So in one sense, we don't need to do something extra to develop these qualities. If we practice devotional service, these qualities will come. But while practicing devotional service, while practicing bhakti, one should try or to make sure like these qualities actually are coming. So with the patient, for example, okay, patient is sick, patient takes the medicine, the solution, then so they take the medicine, but they also monitor, okay, is my, blood pressure, if it's high, like coming down, or if it's low, getting to the normal, or my red blood cell count, is it increasing? It was, quite low earlier. So whatever being the prescription, he doesn't need to do anything extra. So rather observe. So similarly, prescription, is it leading to improvement, in those external parameters? So what's happening? Like, if it's not curing me, for example, is there any other disease, any other complication? Because the medicine, it's not helping me. It doesn't have like the desired effect of curing me. Similarly, I'm doing it, but I can't see those qualities, for example, coming in. So I might be committing some offenses. So I'm doing the process of devotional service. It's not leading to desired results. So we need to observe both ways. Am I committing offenses? So sometimes, it's being said, a general example used at work of a glass. Is it half full or half empty? And if someone says it's half empty, oh, so pessimist. Be optimist, it's half full, it's half full. Sometimes with devotees, if you say it's half empty, oh, don't be pessimist, it's half full. But if I'm thirsty and if someone gives me empty glass, right, I need water, like it's empty. Don't think it's empty, don't be so negative, But am I being negative? No, I'm being objective. I'm telling it there is no water in the glass, So that is objective, being objective. So when we say these are the problems, we are not being pessimist, Rather we are being telling, okay, these are the problems, these are the facts, and then the solution is there. So denying reality, it's not optimism, Could be seen as stupidity, you're not even acknowledging it. And because being pessimist, it's like, oh, there's no solution, nothing can be done. That's being pessimist, like nothing can be done. But having the solution, it's not being pessimist. So sometimes, we hear detachment. Okay, one should be detached from children, wife, or home. But then we say, oh, we do have those feelings. We do feel the affection, which is quite natural. But if we are like too attached, not doing devotional service, not making any spiritual advancement, not making an effort to please Krishna, then it's detrimental. But if we are making our homes pleasant for or conducive for Krishna consciousness, so the person or the devotee, it's chanting, accepting remnants of food, prasadam, discussing scripture like Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavatam, doing deity worship at home. So these things would make us happy and also train our family members in this way, People say, I want my family time. So this could be the family time, discussing about Krishna, doing kirtan together. So molding our family life so that we can develop taste for Krishna consciousness. So no need to change from family life to renounce order. But yes, if family life is not favorable, then it's a different thing. So the point is what Arjuna did, sacrificing everything to serve Krishna. Because what he said, I can't kill, my relatives, I can't kill my cousins, So he didn't want to kill them, but when he understood, okay, these family members, they are impediments to Krishna, to his Krishna realization. So he accepted the instructions of Krishna. He fought the war. So there is a difference between affection and attachment. So affection is natural, it's emotional, human connection which we have. So which is vital for relationships to exist, Because when we relate to a person, so it's the whole person, You can't really say, I love your soul, but I don't care about your body, whatever. So in one instance, it was the Vyas Puja, and the celebration was going on. And one devotee was limping, and Srila Prabhupada asked, oh, what happened during the Vyas Puja? And then gave him a prescription, of homemade, medicine, so that it can be cured. So that's, in the relationship, taking care of the body, mind, soul, right? So protection doesn't mean just spiritual protection. You should do this, you shouldn't do this, this is good, this is not. No, that is important. But people also should feel valued for, cared for, cherished, so that they come closer to Krishna. So with family members, when it comes, it's the emphasis of detachment, could sometimes, or most of the time, be seen some negative effect, in terms of irresponsibility. But detachment is not being irresponsible, But it means not being too or excessively emotionally entangled, with matter. Because with irresponsibility, it's like unwillingness to bear the burden which you actually own. So if you have a family, you need to take care of the family, We hear this example, in many classes. I'll just touch on that. In the early days of ISKCON, like families were staying in temple, and temple authorities, they were telling Matajis like, oh, it's important to distribute books, but it's a motherly instinct to take care of child. And one Mataji wrote a letter to Prabhupada, what should I do? And Prabhupada strongly said, children, they are gift of Krishna, gift of God. So he didn't take like the two extremes, rather, so he didn't tell avoid all the responsibilities, No. Rather, do them and participate in devotional service as well. Same applies to like husbands or the prabhus, like don't neglect all the family needs, emotionally or spiritually. So be affectionate but not attached. So sometimes we say, oh, it's a tightrope, right? It's a line on the left, and on the right. So sometimes we see ourselves more on left or more towards right, But the thing is, we are moving forward in the right direction. We understand the concepts, philosophically, conceptually, and we try to practice without disturbing others. And others means including our family members as well, So with our chanting, so we don't want to disturb, others. Like we chant too loud, like others might find it annoying. No, so we understand. Because being in generally or most of the countries, they are like democratic societies. So everyone says, I've got my own choices or rights. Yes, so we do respect that. But we also get ours respected. I want to do bhakti, and this is how I feel inspired to live, and I will be following these principles, or going to practice this. So yes, firm on that. But at the same time, not disturbing others. Yeah. And not being disturbed in terms of by getting too attached to them. And the example, we can take to differentiate attachment and affection is Dhritarashtra and Duryodhana. So, as we know, that is like when we know someone is doing wrong, but we can't say no to that person because of our attachment. So that's attachment. But when we say, I don't mix up with materialistic people, which is understandable because, as in the verse, we don't want to, or we want to protect our bhakti. We understand the so-called, today's norm of socializing. It's just a waste of time. We, as a devotee, understand our priorities in life. When you say we do or try to do serious devotional service, means we want to utilize our time in purposeful ways. Okay. So, I know with the time, I would be quick. I'll just wrap up by saying a few things. Yes. So with the relationships, naturally we have relationships with families and others. So the important point is like balancing. Even within devotee community, we socialize, but the center is Krishna. Right? In Nectar of Instruction, we see verses 4, 5, and 6. They talk about those relationships among devotees. The 6 symptoms of love and exchanges among devotees. Honoring devotees, paying obeisances. So all those practical applications being given. So to summarize, what we spoke today is from the today's verse, both in the translation and purport. It's very clear about what we should do and what we shouldn't do. Should do is hear about spiritual knowledge, use our time wisely to chant, and be simple and friendly to everyone. Shouldn't be envious of anyone, and try to avoid the company of people who aren't spiritually advanced. We also discussed some virtues or the items of knowledge, which Srila Prabhupada mentions in today's purport, like humility, non-violence, tolerance, simplicity. And humility, it's not being proud when we have reason to be proud, And proudelessness is not being proud when we don't have a reason to be proud. Proudelessness, yes. And non-violence is not just attacking others, but also not putting others in distress. And we took the example of the doctor, not giving proper cure or medicine. It can be considered as a violence. And with these virtues, they help us in our devotion, our bhakti. And when we do devotional services, we develop these qualities. When we do bhakti, we make spiritual advancement. We also spoke about the perceivable symptoms in the material or in this material world, like birth, old age, disease, and death. And we spoke about attachment, difference between attachment and affection. And we touched on the nectar instruction verses in terms of like the reference, I should rather say. So which guides us how to have the relationships among devotees and to continue with our spiritual progress or on the journey. So we'll finish here. Are there any comments, questions? Yes, Prabhuji.
Just wondering, just reflecting on the last part of the third paragraph of Srila Prabhupada, where he mentioned about the definition of Aryan. Aryan, a Sura, a saintly person, is one who's advancing in Krishna, in knowledge of Krishna consciousness, as well as material prosperity.
Mm-hmm.
So the first part is very easy to understand. How is the second part relevant, and how do we understand that advancing in material prosperity? Why is that being mentioned there? Could you please elaborate on that?
My understanding of maintaining, like, be advanced in material or material advancement and spiritual advancement. So it's like hanging on to your material desires, like, okay, I do want. Is that your question, Prabhuji? Sorry. Like why it's... And at the same time with spiritual advancement, is it?
I was actually just wondering, what is the connection between the two? How do they go together?
Practically how we say material advancement, spiritual advancement together? Sorry.
I didn't quite understand the definition. That's what I was just wondering. The definition of Aryan.
Okay. With the definition of Aryan, I remember I heard the definition of Aryan that's being, because mentioned in 2.2 Bhagavad Gita was, and I was hearing, again, I would say His Grace Chaitanya Charan Prabhuji's lecture. He was explaining about Aryan, but and he gave like the full explanation of like what is Aryan, and even the history of the word Aryan, like, and sometimes why it's being taken or interpreted as negative. So I won't touch on all of that. Maybe I can give you. I've got like some article on that. Maybe I'll share that with you. So yeah, it's I don't have everything on top of my head on that article, but I do remember he spoke, or explained by going into like the history of the word Aryan, how when Europeans or they came to India, and how it was kind of misused, if that's the right word to say here. But thank you. I know we are a bit over time, so shall we finish here? Okay. ग्रंथराज श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय, श्री श्री राधा गोपीनाथ भगवान की जय, जद गुरु श्रीला प्रभुपाद की जय. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories, all glories, all glories to Sri Sri Guru and Gauranga. Hari Hari Bol.